Hello and welcome to the Quadcast. I'm the founder and host, John McAlevey. This podcast, while mainly for and about folks like me who have had their lives affected by a spinal cord injury, is really for anyone who just wants to be inspired. In this space, I speak with individuals who have had life-changing injuries and accidents, and yet in spite of insurmountable odds in many cases, have gone on to do amazing things with those lives. I'm reminded of the old metaphor that when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. Well, my guests, they take those lemons and roll right over them with their wheelchairs and rollators on their journey. I'd like to thank you for lending me your ears for another session of OT and PT for the soul. So, what do you say we get this show on the road?
You know, when I looked up the word service in the dictionary, it gave me this answer: an act of helpful activity. My guest today has been working in service his entire life, service to not only his family, his state of New York, but also the country. And it's my pleasure to welcome in Terry McGhee. Terry, first of all, thank you for joining me and thank you for your service.
Thank you, John. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my story and the evolution of my life, beginning, from the early ages of, 10, 11, 12 to I just turned 66 today. It's my birthday.
Hey,
So,
happy birthday.
thank you very much. I figured when you asked me about a couple of dates, I figured about a month ago, why not do it on my birthday? So
That's terrific. I have to tell you, we're both Capricorns because my birthday was the 8th. I turned
there you go.
58, yeah. So we've got a
Congratulations.
lot in common, the Irish
What?
heritage and the birthdays and all of that good stuff.
Good for you. Good for you.
Yes. So what I like to do, Terry,
Well,
with my shows is I like to begin at the beginning. And so why don't you tell the audience, where did you grow up and what were some things you were interested in your youth? And maybe were there any people or persons that you looked up to that influenced a young Terry as he was coming up?
Sure. My mother and father originally from New York. My father was a fireman in Rescue 1. So I'm sure you can imagine how that played out throughout my career as a cop. But
Yes.
I was used to those challenges. We moved out of New York when I was probably 4 or 5 years of age. And me and my 4 siblings, there were 7 of us altogether in the family, but we moved to a small town in New Jersey. New York was changing in the 60s. So my father and mother decided to move out. And we lived in a small town in New Jersey. And I really enjoyed my upbringing. We, a lot of kids in the neighborhood, never a shortage of things to do, played sports, all team sports, football, basketball, baseball. And, really enjoyed living along this town in Keansburg, if I'm allowed to say that.
Sure,
Um,
absolutely. So,
lived in Keansburg, but go ahead.
okay. I was going to say, so you didn't spend your afternoons in your room on your cell phone doing social media stuff, right?
My father would absolutely. He would tell me, even if I tried to sit down and watch TV,
Right?
he'd say, like, what are they going to do for you on TV? They're going to pay your bills. And I was probably 10 then, so it was probably a little bit safer for me to be outside the house than inside the house, and then deal with the wrath of my mother and father. So,
Yes.
but going outdoors was always easy for me. You go out, there were plenty of kids playing, in the neighborhood I lived. Basketball, like I said, you just go out, you start shooting basketball or playing stickball, and within minutes, it seemed like kids were coming out and joining us.
Yes. Yeah.
You
Just a
know,
couple of boys playing. I don't even think they exist anymore. Sticks. Remember, you play with your friends.
Stickball. Oh yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
we'd go
Nowadays,
up the street. We'd go up the street and play stickball in the parking lot there, and
yeah.
just really, even if no one was there, you just threw the ball up against the wall by yourself and wandered around, and things usually happen. So
Sure.
I ran into other kids, other friends. Sometimes maybe not so much friends, but you ran into people and you enjoyed life.
It was a different world we grew up in, Terry. I think,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
unfortunately, it would be really nice if we could go back. I think
So,
everybody says that about their generation. But so now tell us, you were playing stickball with your buddies and basketball and football, but then a young Terry McGhee gets involved in boxing. When did you fall in love with the sweet science?
well, I probably around 10 or 12, I started, I saw Muhammad Ali and his Frazier fights and saw him ascend to the championship, world championship. And there were a couple of local fighters in my neighborhood, a couple of towns away, but they were always in the newspapers. So I started to think about that. And I took my father's duffel bag from when he was in the military, filled it up with dirt and sand and rags, and I hung it in the tree. And I'd go out there after, either before or after, being out with my friends, and I'd start banging the bag around, actually to the point where I put on socks because my hands would get bloodied and stuff. I didn't have gloves at the time. My mother and father
Sure.
never bought or invested in it at the time, but it drew the attention from many of the kids in the neighborhood. So of course, the town was kind of a competitive town. Little by little, I would hit the bag, and then more people would come over, and then hitting the bag led to, well, why don't we, fight or spar or do whatever? So father ended up buying me a couple pair of boxing gloves, and next thing you know, we went from hitting the bag to hitting each other. And I kind of enjoyed the competitiveness of it, and I was always brought up during the Vietnam era days, and enjoyed the outdoors, enjoyed hunting and fishing, but it was the survival portion of
Right.
life that really interests me,
Yeah.
including the stories, my father would tell from Rescue One about other people's lives. They were called in to save other lives, and
Right.
it depended upon your mental strength and your physical strength, or whether or not some people would live or die. I kind of took that to heart and made
Yeah.
sure as much as I could that that remained like a center point of my upbringing. So
Yeah, and you took
uh,
that into the ring with you. Speaking of the ring, you had some real success. I mean, this was not just like you knocking your friends around in the neighborhood. Here's a chance for you to brag about, where you've competed and some of the titles you've won. You were quite a hit in the ring.
like I said, I started probably between 10 and 12, developing an interest in boxing. And I went to the gym, the local gym, and they said, "Come back when you're 16."
Okay.
And I was like, "Well, I don't want to come back when I'm 16. I want to do it now. The interest, have that interest now." So I went back when I was 13, but I figured, you know what? Let me work out. Let me do my push-ups. Let me do my pull-ups. Let me do everything that I could possibly do to try to physically get in better shape. Because when I went to the gym, most of the guys there were 18, 20,
Right.
or 22.
Yeah.
I'm going in there as a 13-year-old now, and
Mhm.
so I went back when I was 13, and they accepted me. But I was 112 pounds, 13 years old,
Mm.
fighting with guys against guys that were 16, like I said, 18, 20. They were
Good
just
grief.
physically stronger. After I lost my first fight at 14, and you're supposed to be 16 to compete in the amateurs. This was going back 74, I think it was,
Okay.
when I had my first amateur fight. And I had just been to the Golden Gloves a few months before, and I watched them fight, and I was looking at the other 112 pounders, and I'm like shaking my head like this, I could do this.
Sizing
And
them up.
I I ended up fighting one of them that I saw, a couple months. I saw a few months prior in the Golden Gloves, and I kind of took a little bit of a beating. So,
Okay.
but that only kind of motivated me to work harder. So I went back to the gym, and a couple of the older fighters said, "Listen, you You got to learn how to box. You got to learn how to hit and not be hit. And
Right.
you're not as strong as a lot of these other guys yet because you're 14. But so we need to work on your technique.
Sure.
And they really, taught me the science of boxing and stuff. So
So tell us
I
about how you became ranked number 9 in the USA as an amateur boxer.
well, I won the Junior Olympics in 75. I went on to win a couple of fights at 14, 15. I won the Junior Olympics in the state and the regionals in 1975. And then 76, sorry,
Sure. Take a moment.
I joined the Golden Gloves. And at the time, I was just 15. Like I said, my birthday was today. So I had my first fight in the Junior Olympics at the Golden Gloves. At 15, I ended up stopping the kid from Jersey City. And then my next couple of fights, I stopped the second guy. The third guy won by decision, and then I won the Golden Gloves novice title at 139 pounds.
Amazing.
So after that, it put me into a different category of fighters, and I started fighting. Boxing was a little different back then. You didn't wear a headgear, you didn't wear a shirt into the ring. Everything now is documented in a boxing book. Back then, we'd go to a lot of shows and around the state and even other states. And hey, anybody here 139 pounds? All right, everybody up against the wall. Come over and see the doctor. All right, your guy has this many fights. There was no real checking or
Yeah,
balances, so it was
sure.
took a lot of chances.
It was the Wild West.
It was an interesting place. I remember climbing up fire escapes on like 29th Street and Fifth Avenue, one of the gyms down there. I think it was Solar Boxing Club, and climbed up the fire escape into the window. People had the tables set up with food. People are dancing, and yet two guys are in the ring smacking each other in the face. So and no books, no nothing.
Yeah.
It was risky, but that's how you got that experience.
Yeah. And so that
I
experience toughened you up. And so now we go from the ring to the U.S. Army. What was behind your decision to join the Army? And tell us a little bit about your basic training at Fort Bragg.
Sure. Well, after my boxing, I went out to Ohio. I fought out there. That's where I got ranked. I went to the quarterfinals in the Ohio State Fair tournament. I got ranked number 9th in the country. I fought maybe a year or so after that. But I had already met my wife back in December of 76. So I had started to kind of become somewhat uh, gravitated towards other things, put it that way.
Yes. Life
And
got in
my
way.
life definitely got in the way, and in a very good way. So I can't complain because I'm still married, 50
God
years
bless.
almost.
God bless.
But I wanted to put boxing behind me because growing up in that boxing world, it's a lot of training, a lot of dedication, and I was getting tired of it. I was into the
Sure.
hunting and fishing and a lot of other things. So I went to Italy in 1980, boxing, literally came home a day or two later. I had already signed up in the military because it's something I had always wanted to do, but I was kind of on a path that could have led to some negative things. So
Okay.
I told my wife, or my girlfriend at the time, I got to make a move. I have to do something. I need to get away from this environment. Not only in Jersey, I had taken the test for the New York City Police Department in 1979, and I got a 90 on the exam, and I figured, oh, I'm good. I was 16,000 on the list, 16,000. So I said, you know what? This is not going to happen that quickly. It gave me an opportunity. I said, you know what? I'm going to join the Army. I went down to the recruiter at 42nd and 8th Avenue. I was living at my grandmother's apartment up on 82nd and 2nd, up on the upper there.
Sure.
I joined the military and told my wife, look, if we want to make a life together, and I have to do this. And you want to stick with me, tell me so. If not, then let me just get that in my mind and let's move on. But
I
I
got
was
to do this. Yeah.
I had to do it, and thank God she decided to say, you know, "Of course I'm with you."
Yeah.
So she made me going,
And
away a lot
how
easier.
long did you spend in the Army? How many years did you do at, I know you said you did your basic training at Fort Bragg. How many, from the time that you told your wife, "I gotta do this," to the time you're honorably discharged, how long is that time span?
It was 3 years. I went in '80, February of '80. We got married in '81. My wife
Okay.
and I, we got married in '81, lived in the trailer, a single wide trailer on the edge of a swamp in North Carolina. So, she went from living at home to living with me in the trailer.
The lap of
Uh,
luxury.
oh, absolutely. And then 3 years in Fort Bragg, North Carolina with the 82nd Airborne Division, and, I loved this. I really did enjoy the structure, the mission. I enjoyed the guys. If I didn't have it in my mind about getting out and going into the police department or the fire department and wanting to give that a shot, I would have stayed in the military. I really wanted to become like a helicopter pilot. That's
Okay.
what I kind of kind of angling towards. But February I get out in February of 1983. And by now I have, I think, maybe one kid and one on the way, possibly, and a crazy dog. So um, we lived for a couple of months in New Jersey, and then I wanted to establish my residency again in New York. So we moved to the Bronx. But
Okay, and is that when you
wow,
started to, is that when you gravitated towards, working for New York's finest and got involved in the police department?
it was it was a few years before I actually, got on. I was
Okay.
working in the steel mill in New Jersey. She was living in the Bronx in a three-story walk-up. She went from the single wide trailer to the three-story walk-up over
Yeah.
in, up in the Bronx there.
Okay.
And, I worked in the steel mill for, like, 4 years, and then I got called in, January of 1987. I got called for the PD and went through the applicant investigation process, the physical, the psychological. Then I joined the academy. I joined the police academy in January of '87 and did the 6 months there. And when I went, they knew my military background, so they nominated me for the company sergeant.
Okay.
And now I'm 27 years of age. I'm a little bit older than most of the other people. I had two kids, married, in the military, and most of the guys still living at home for the most part. So I didn't want it because I hadn't been in school in a number of years now.
Right.
But I'm glad it happened. But I was a little bit older than most of the other guys there.
Right.
So, but it was an added responsibility I
Sure.
wasn't really sure about, at the time. But
You were taking on a leadership role, and, you were a little reluctant at first, but I'm heartened to know that your military background was something that you could fall back on, and that was something that I'm sure really helped in the process.
absolutely. And to be honest, there were 5 other guys who were former military guys in my academy class, in my class. Out of that one class of like 35 students, 5 of us, or 6 of us were former military. So that really helped me with
Yes.
keeping the structure and keeping some of the keeping the discipline, within the squads.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I buckled, like, I really went home every day. I closed the door. I had to I did my studies. I made up index cards. Like, this was my life, if I wanted to stay with the police department.
Mhm.
But the military was always in the back of my mind.
No doubt. And Terry, from reading the bio that you sent over, which was like 3 pages long, full of amazing accomplishments, I know
Thank
that
you.
you had many assignments over the years in the NYPD. And so why don't you take us on a quick tour of some of the different divisions that you've served in?
Sure. Once I finished the academy in January or July of 1987, I served 6 months in what they call NSU, Neighborhood Stabilization Unit number 3, which is Midtown South, 42nd Street, Times Square area. Back in the '80s, it was a little different than it
Yeah.
is right now. But when you look at 42nd Street between 7th and 8th, there were 8 cops on that block alone.
Yeah.
4 on the north side and 4 on the south side of 42nd Street. I went there with a few friends of mine from the academy, spent 6 months, and then I went up to Harlem, up in the 32nd precinct at 3-2. And that's really where I learned how, you know, how to be a cop, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I met some tremendous individuals, great bosses, and, which was pretty daunting sight when you first walk into the 3-2 and you learn about it. It has the most officers killed in the line of duty in the entire city.
Wow.
And the precinct goes from 127 to 155th. It's not a big precinct.
Right.
It's a small precinct, but it's
Dangerous.
it's a dangerous. I mean, I got shot there in 1990. Thank
Mhm.
God I was working with some great, great cops
Yeah.
and great bosses. But I did
Yeah.
4.5, almost 5 years in the 3-2. Went to Spanish Harlem. I became a detective. I worked in the robbery squad dealing with, local robbery patterns. Got into 2 shootings there, in the 2-3. And then I went to, I did like a citywide anti-crime thing as a detective for a
Mhm.
year.
Mhm.
I was put on the rape task force for about 6 months or so. And then I went to the homicide squad in the Bronx, which at 10 years on, I wasn't really sure if this is the place for me to be, but my boss at the time, who was my boss in the 3-2, he was the chief now of the Bronx detectives and said, no, I want you and a couple of other guys. Like I was still fairly young and I was kind of hungry. I mean, I'm always hungry as far as
He
that
said,
goes.
I'm sure he said, "Get me McGhee. I need him on my team."
Ah, he probably did say something like, hey, get me a cappuccino with the McGhee. Get me a
Yeah.
cappuccino and some
Right.
Chinese food. We
You know,
used
Terry,
to,
let me ask you this question. Did you serve with any folks? One of my favorite, I know it's TV is completely different than real life, but one of my favorite shows over the years was Blue Bloods, and Tom Selleck was always such a great police commissioner. Was any of that stuff close to real life, or was that just all, smoke and mirrors and TV?
I'll be honest with you, I never watched any of them.
Is that right?
Never,
Okay.
never watched any of those NYPD type programs. I lived it every day,
Right. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I never, I just could never get into it. Like, when I try to explain to people like the enthusiasm and the
Right.
hunger to go to work every day and just we knew some of the inherent risks that
Of
were,
course.
associated with the job, but we really enjoyed each other's company. For 22 years, even when I never went regular sick. I was always, I got shot. I was in a couple car accidents. I
Sure.
went, line of duty, but I really enjoyed the company of the people that I was in and the bosses. And, I
Mhm.
think it worked out for me in the long run, So,
Absolutely. And while I mentioned in the beginning, Terry, that not only did you serve your family all these years and the state of New York, but you also began serving your country. And so tell us, unfortunately, in 2008, while deployed overseas on a counterterrorism operation, your life changed forever. Please tell us, if you could, about what you remember before, during, and after your C6 spinal cord injury.
sure. Like I said, I joined the Bronx Homicide for 4 years. I loved the job. In 1997, I joined. In 2001, September, we all know what happened. Islamic Sunni extremists attacked us again on 9/11, 2001. I was given the opportunity to go to what they call the Joint Terrorism Task Force, the JTTF. I never had any desire to go to a task force like that, but because of 9/11, my son was going in the military. I saw what had happened. I was down there working on ground zero in the search and recovery efforts and search and rescue and search and recovery. And, September 25th of 2001, when I officially joined the JTTF, and my whole world changed, like everybody else, but mine really changed as far as I was put on the squad with a number of FBI agents, Secret Service, all members of the intelligence community to track down the leadership of Al Qaeda. Like they that squad I was on with the SDNY responsible for like the Al Qaeda organization and indictments and arrests and prosecutions. So all of that came from, for the most part, from the New York office, JTTF.
Sure.
So I was in a league now with people that were the top of their game, and I had prosecuted a few cases federally, so I knew some of the U.S. attorneys over there. But again, the people over on the counterterrorism side of the house were exceptional, and I can say to this day, thank God I'm still friendly with some of them, and we have, we share
Yeah.
an interest in prosecutions and Article 3 prosecutions. So, but I worked, you know, the Bali bombing, I worked on the London bombing,
Hmm.
and I got involved in a lot of different operations pursuing Al Qaeda, trying
Hmm.
to bring a law enforcement option
Yes.
to the intelligence community and to the global war on terrorism.
Hmm.
Worked with a lot of people in the country and a lot of our foreign partners. But in 2008, I was assisting other members of the JTTF on a case
Hmm.
deployed overseas in furtherance of that operation, and subsequently injured and received a spinal cord injury, C6 spinal cord injury on July 4th, Independence Day.
Good grief.
Uh, kind of changed my life. And I first, after getting dragged out of the water, unconscious, went to the hospital in Lisbon. A day or so later, I remember hearing voices and kind of reassured me. All right, I'm still on the earth. I'm glad to see that. And then I threw my hand in the air because my boxing days, I think that was my first response of like, or I'm going to fight back against this thing, just like I
Fight or
did when I got
flight.
shot,
Yeah.
fight or flight. And even when I got shot, first thing I did, you know, try to took my gun out of the holster, tried to, then I pursued the guy and chased him and tackled him.
Right.
And we got knocked down once in my life in all my fights, but I got right back up before I even realized I hit the canvas. But my response was like, I'm not tolerating this.
Yeah.
And I threw my hands in the air and I said, all right, at least I have my arms, but everything else I'll have to just kind of figure it out. But I suffered was there for 2 weeks, maybe 3, waiting to get my respiratory in line.
Right.
I they ended up flying me back and spent another 2 weeks, I believe, in Cornell Medical
Okay.
Center, and then 3 months in Mount Sinai undergoing rehabilitation there.
Sure.
But
Sure.
all along, the FBI, the NYPD, family, friends, all gathered around every day and supported me unequivocally 110%. So I, um, I owe each and every one of them, a debt of gratitude.
Terry, I feel the same way. I could have never done my rehab were it not for family and friends. I was lucky enough to do my rehabilitation at Kessler Institute for Rehabilitation, which was, I grew up 8 miles from the building and playing on 3
Wow.
different sporting teams. We used to drive by on the bus. We would go by Kessler all the time. And it's up on a big hill. For those of you that don't know about Kessler, it's up on a large hill. And, I never really looked up the hill in all those years going by it. And little did I know it would play such a focal point in my life and play such a big role in what would my life would soon become. But I'm glad you brought up family and friends, and so I'm sure that, as you said, they were really instrumental in your recovery. Did you attack PT and OT with the same mindset that you did in the ring all those years earlier? Was that something that's just ingrained in who Terry McGhee is?
100%. There was the first day that I recall, and I remember hearing those voices and throwing my hands in the air, I knew what my response was going to be.
Yeah.
It may not have been an easy one, but I knew that's how I have to approach this. Um, and again, like going into the ring, you don't know who you're fighting. I'm going to take my chances and I'm going to give them my best. And I'm not going to let, like I lost my first fight, I'm not going to let that loss dictate to me,
Right.
or I got shot. And people will say, "Oh, you may not come back. You may, may not be the same." Well, that's not who I am. Thank God, and I count my blessings for my family, my wife, my family, huge motivators for me. And as far as the PT goes, I didn't want to get up early in the morning after having the shivers all night and having fevers all night at Mount Sinai. And
Yeah.
now they're asking me to get up, and, it's embarrassing to have a 110-pound girl. God bless her
Right.
and them. But, I'm a grown man, and now you're trying to help me get from my bed to my chair. Like I wasn't used to that, and
Sure.
but I
Sure.
had to overcome those kind of sensitivities
Of
and that
course.
thought process,
Of course.
but,
That leads me
the, yeah,
that leads me to my next question is that these injuries rob so much from us physically, but people don't realize how they take a toll on the person mentally. And it's just not the person in the chair or in the bed. It's the wife, it's the children, it's the neighbor, the coworker, and all of that sort of stuff. And so how did you come to grips with all of a sudden, you're doing all this work, you're a grown man and have worked all these years in high stress areas and testosterone flying all over the place with working as a police officer and in counterterrorism. And now all of a sudden your life has changed forever. And it's not going to go back to the way it was. I mean, how did that sit with you mentally and how did you sort of compartmentalize that part of it all?
I knew things weren't gonna be I knew I wasn't gonna be able to attack things with the same intensity, but I knew every day that my wife and my children were there, and my job, my friends and that network of people, supporters, they supported me after I got shot. They supported me, when this injury happened, and, I wasn't gonna let that change. I was not gonna let this injury dictate to me, how I was gonna live the remainder of my life,
Exactly.
I just had to, this is who I am, and this is, how I wanna continue living my life, and I have a different vision of it now. I have to do it from the chair, but I don't see myself as being in the chair,
Right.
I
Of
still
course.
myself see myself as being my family, my home, my job. This is what I've done, what I've been capable of doing with the help of God, and, and the direction and so many friends. But, um,
Absolutely.
I just I cannot look at it any other way. I don't wake up thinking someday I'm gonna walk again either. I just say,
Yeah.
"This is it," and I move forward. I have to move on, and, I hope to God for somebody younger and, you know, affected because of an injury, that they get what they want out of life, but
Yes.
I don't look at it that way.
Yes. So now therapy is over. You've done your PT and your OT. And now it's like, okay, what are we going to do now? Tell us how cathartic it was for you to return to work for the NYPD again. I know that was something that a lot of folks like you and me who have had these injuries, once they can't do things sort of the way they used to do them prior, you're looking around thinking, who's going to hire me? Like, how am I going to work? And we just want to have a purpose again in life, and to find that again with your old friends that stuck by you must have been heartening for you and your family, and to get you back involved so that you're not spending all your time thinking about what had happened to you and what your life is like now. Tell us about how important that was for you.
Going back to work was probably my second or third goal. First, I have to get my mind right that this is gonna be my focus, and that happened in Portugal. Then I wanted to get home just to kinda assure my kids, my children, and my wife that, I'm gonna be here. I'm getting back into the game. Getting back to work was, I raised my family on that job. I bought
Yeah.
my home, on my career, because of my career and stuff. So, I needed to prove to people that, I not to this is who I am, and this is not a joke no matter what, and, I'm not gonna let this change my feelings towards my cases. This is I have unfinished business with my cases. I'm not gonna let them go,
Right.
and, the job really stood by me, both sides, the FBI and the NYPD, and, they eventually, the PD ended up putting me on what they call the mayor's exempt list, and which gave me the opportunity to continue with the police department, and all my medical bills, my monthly medical supplies, they're covered. They helped me with getting a vehicle, a handicapped vehicle, and it just gave me a lot of a peace of mind that that I had been searching for since I had gotten injured, and it took about 2 years. I
Yeah.
got injured in July 4th of '08, and I went back to work, I think, in May of 2010, and
Yes.
everyone in the office, there were 400 people in the office. They all lined up by my cubicle to come over and, you know, hello and wish me well, and, and
Amazing.
supported me. So that was an amazing time for me. So,
Yeah. And
and
they well,
people that I didn't even know came out of the woodwork and said, "Hey, we're going to help you." The Tunnel of Towers, Catch a Lift organization, they've given me and supported me across the board.
yeah, you mentioned Tunnel to Towers. Tell us a little bit about the relationship you have with Frank Siller and the amazing organization Tunnel to Towers, whom I just donated my car to them. They picked it
Oh,
up at work a couple weeks ago. It's old. I don't know what they're going to do with it, but they're just such a great organization. You see their commercials on TV all the time, and so I wanted to do a little something there. But tell us about your relationship with them.
about 5 years ago, I had been supporting them for a while in some of the runs, and talking, with family members and friends about what they do. And my son was in the military, and I unfortunately had visions of him, God forbid, being injured, and
Right.
what would we do and who would be there.
Of course.
Um,
Yeah.
but I had gotten a call from the DEA, the Detective Endowment Association, the president, and a couple of other retired NYPD guys, and someone from the Tunnel of Towers. They were working, they were retired from the PD, working with Tunnel of Towers, and they said, "Hey, Tunnel Towers is interested in helping you with your mortgage on your home." And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean helping me? Like, in what capacity?" They're like, "Well, they want to pay your monthly bills." And I went, "I don't," I said, "Look, I appreciate it, but give it to somebody else." Well, I have a job. I have a job. I have income. There are a lot of other people out there that probably need it more than me.
Right.
And they said, "Listen, what you've done," they knew a little bit of the story. I had taken in my wife, and I had taken in my three nieces and nephew many, many years ago. Once, on top of my own four children, I had three nieces and a nephew,
My
served in the
goodness.
military, and shot, da 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 da, getting injured now. They said, "Listen, we want to repay you for what you've done. And we don't only want to pay your monthly mortgage, we're going to pay it off altogether." And I said, "I just can't believe this. It doesn't happen to me and my wife, and we're fine with that."
Sure.
And yet, within a month of paperwork back and forth, they paid off the mortgage. My home has always been like the center of the family,
Right.
all holiday. I mean, we have 40, 50, 60 people here for Thanksgiving sometimes. I
Wow.
mean, I'm telling you, we had 63 or 65 here
That's
one
great.
Christmas. I mean, we move all the furniture out. So it's a huge gathering of family. And some of my nieces and nephews still talk about it today, like,
I
"Oh,
love it.
Aunt Lori makes the best gravy," or whatever. Oh yeah, yeah. It's hard, warming to the heart.
There's
So,
nothing like family,
but I
Terry.
exactly. And they stepped in, and I've been like an ambassador for them, one of many that, if there's an opportunity to go and speak on their behalf, I usually take them up on it, unless there's
Yeah.
something conflicting in the schedule.
Sure.
I've, spoken a number of times, and I participate. I bring around 30 people to the runs every year up in New York, and this year, especially 2026, because it's 25-year
Yeah.
in honor of the perished. We're
Yes.
doing something big for,
Tremendous.
for the Tunnel of Towers, as far as a
Tremendous.
fundraising event. So, yeah, they're a tremendous organization, and they turned me on to this other one, Catch a Lift, that
Yeah.
actually pays for my gym membership, so I can go to the gym every day
Awesome.
and pursue my goals. So they've really, both organizations, but I've been with the Tunnel of Towers a lot longer,
Terry,
and
there's a
it's
lot of
amazing what they
there's a lot of good people out there. You know, sometimes in the world we live in, they like to highlight some rotten people that are doing things that are bad, but there really are some great people and some great organizations that will give you a hand up when the chips are down. And I'm so glad to hear that. You know, you see those commercials all the time, and it's really true. They're doing exactly what they talk about, and you being a recipient, you're a perfect candidate for that. And I'm glad that they stepped in for you because of all that you've done for all of us for all these years. And so, how about tell me about you were a primary investigator into the arrest and conviction of a very important person. I want you to share with us who that is and how fulfilling it was, not only for you, but for New York City and the United States as a whole.
After I had returned back with the JTTF, I stayed involved on the cases and stuff, and I had an opportunity to um, pursue a couple of individuals, and right around 2012, I became heavily involved with this one individual, one of several, and his name was Suleiman Abu Ghaith. He had been on the U.S. government's radar for a number of years, and I saw an opportunity and investigative wise and investigatively. So I pursued him. He's actually married to bin Laden, Osama bin Laden, the head of Al Qaeda. He's one of bin Laden's um, son-in-laws, and he was a spokesperson for Al Qaeda. He sat alongside Osama bin Laden and Zawahiri right
Mm,
after the 9/11 event. And he himself put out a number of videos threatening the United States and more attacks, more bombings, more plane bombings, and just more attacks and recruiting people, young kids from across the globe. So I was fortunate enough to work with members of the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York. Really, really helped us, and it was me and three other individuals from the JTTF, a U.S. Marshal, another detective, and
hmm
an FBI agent, very accomplished FBI agent. Um, we were working the case from New York, and also had some input from FBI headquarters, and
right.
especially communicating with the legat offices overseas. In 2013, we were able to pick this Suleiman Abu Ghaith up, and 2014 he was tried in the Southern District of New York, and he was convicted to life imprisonment for his conduct with and in support of Al Qaeda and the threats that he made against us. And it was as a detective for the New York City Police Department, working in their federal capacity, working alongside so many members of the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the intelligence community. I mean, I never would have dreamt that this would happen. Never would have dreamt 9/11 would have happened, but
Right.
it did. And our response and our pursuit of these people never ends.
hmm
In my opinion,
Yeah.
never ends because their ideology doesn't end. So um, I felt uh, a great sense of reward and accomplishment being involved with that investigation,
Yeah.
which culminated in a trial and his conviction. So
Really fulfilling
I'm
for
thankful.
your for all your brethren and the folks, obviously the 9/11, the folks that perished, and that name Bin Laden, just so destructive and so bad and evil, and the fact that you were able to help take down one of his what was it, his grandson, you said?
So his son-in-law, he was married to
Son-in-law.
one of Bin Laden's daughters.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Amazing accomplishment.
And
How
like I
long
said, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how long from when you started working on the case until he was tried and finally convicted? Was it like a year-long process, a 2-year process? I know these things take a long time.
The investigation probably took about 8 months.
Okay.
The complaint and the arrest process took a few more months. And then overall, from the time I opened up the case to the time he was convicted, less than 3 years.
Wow.
And then you look at like people, nothing against Guantanamo Bay, everybody has their opinions about it, but
Right.
some people are still down there for
Hmm.
many, many years and good. I'm glad. I'm happy for them. There's a
Yes.
reason for it, but the system, the Article 3 justice system, our justice system or system of justice, uh, 3 years, done. Put them away,
Unbelievable.
close the gate. And, again, we had a great relationship with the U.S. Attorney's Office and in the pursuit of this individual and really put their trust in investigation that I was part of. So
Tremendous.
I
Tremendous. And
can't.
then
Uh,
following 36 years of service on all different aspects of service, you retired in 2023. And so tell us, Terry, what is a day in the life now for you and your wife of 45 years? I know you're down at the Jersey Shore. Tell us all the grandchildren that you have, and you're talking about these amazing dinners that you have for the holidays. Tell us what a day in the life is like for you now.
Sure. I live in Monmouth County, New Jersey, so I'm close to the shore. I still keep in touch with many of my friends from the New York office. Then the Newark division, I worked a little bit, a couple of days a week out of the Red Bank office and became friends with a number of individuals, especially, I mean, since my son's detective down here also.
Okay.
So, it took a while. It took about 2 years for me to kinda get over the jitters with not being, and that feeling, that anxious feeling of, I wanna get back into the game, but, it was time, and it was more so for my wife. I mean, look, I was 63. I probably could have stayed on and in some analytical capacity with the FBI.
You
I
paid your
want to be a
dues,
cop.
Terry.
I
You paid your dues, my
I've been
friend.
blessed, and I found myself out in working out. I have an office here. Finished reading some books. For a while, I was counting screws and nuts and bolts in my garage, kind of sorting them. you
Yeah.
know. But
Yeah.
uh, but that's life. That was all part of the evolution and the being adapting to whatever to retirement. I have 9 grandchildren, 3 of whom live with me,
Okay.
and I do absolutely enjoy every day, being with them and being around them, and I had overcome the obstacles with going to work.
Right.
There were new obstacles at, being home every day, looking at the grass grow, figuring out, painting the deck. So these were new things that were coming to me, um, that I had to kind of figure out, all right, how am I going to accomplish these missions, these tasks? So it's still a learning process being home, being retired. I do get to go to the gym. I've read a few other books. I have a few things going on,
Sure.
I stay busy with the Tunnel of Towers, Catch a Lift organization, and but retirement is still kind of,
You
I'm still,
getting your
not that I'm
sea legs
fighting
under
it,
you.
but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I know
it's
what you
I
mean.
go hunting, I get out, but it's still a little
Yeah.
awkward,
You're not someone that's just gonna sit around and watch, as you said, watch the grass grow. You're a man on a mission, moving and shaking.
Uh-huh. Shaking, yeah, definitely shaking. Yeah, yeah. And moving at a very slow pace, but I move,
Uh,
so
I'm right
it's
there
all
with
good.
you. Which will bring me to my last question, and it's one that I ask of all my guests who have unfortunately endured a spinal cord injury, and it's an interesting story behind it. I was waiting for a doctor's appointment in the long hallway, and I was waiting with a buddy of mine who I actually went to high school with. Unfortunately, we were really good friends in high school, and he had a severe spinal cord injury also. And as
Wow.
we're waiting there, I looked over at him and I said, "Hey, Tommy, if I could snap my fingers right now and you would be completely able-bodied again, what do you think the first thing that you would do would be?" And so as I looked at him and I could see him, like that question mark going over his head with the little cloud like they had in the cartoons, I heard from behind me a woman said, I would go out in my yard and garden. I used to love planting flowers. And then there was a guy off to the right and said, I would go into the garage and tinker with my car. I used to love refurbishing cars and fixing cars. And so I thought, I didn't have a podcast at the time, but I thought if I ever do, this is really a great question for the community because I'm sure everybody would have a different answer in that respect. And so I pose the question to you, Terry. What do you think the first thing that you would do right now would be if you were completely able-bodied once again?
Okay. Taking my wife out of the equation for a number of reasons, I would, yeah, you know what I mean?
I
I
do.
would, look, as much as there are a whole host of things, but to be honest with you, my grandchildren have never seen me stand upright. I'm in the chair, and I have the ability to stand upright in the chair, but I would
Yes.
like to just go out and walk with them for a day, to be
Yeah.
honest with you, to
Hmm.
hold them by their hand, to throw a ball to them, to run, to take them to get to the store to get something, ice cream or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would I love walk on the beach and feel the sand underneath my toes, or walk in the park, or go run up the side of a mountain like I used to do with
Yeah.
the hunting. Yeah, those are all secondary or tertiary type requests, but I think the first one would be just to let them see
Yeah.
who that me outside of the chair, put it that
Yeah.
way.
Pop pop. What do
And,
they call you?
you know, oh, they ca
They call you probably a lot of
most
things,
of them just
right?
call me grandpa.
Okay. Yes.
A lot, maybe even probably behind my back, a lot of things, but in
Yeah.
my face or in
Yes.
my orbit there, they
Yeah.
call me grandpa, all
That's
grandpa.
great. Yeah.
So,
I could see that
yeah, I would like to just walk with them.
that's really noble. I know. I've had a million answers. I've had some folks. Do you know Eric LeGrand, the football player that was injured at Rutgers
Yes,
University?
I kn uh, yes, yes.
Eric told me a funny one. He said, "John, you really
I
want to know
don't
the
know him, I don't know him, but
you know of him though,
I
yeah."
know his story or heard his story.
Yeah, he told me, "If you really wanna know the first thing, I would run out my front door butt naked up and down the street, yelling and smiling," and I've had other people say they would dance with their wives, and some folks say, one guy, it was interesting, he's a high quad. He said, "You know, John, I'm so sick and tired of having to have people get me in and out of bed in the morning and get me in the shower and get me cleaned up." He said, "I would check into the nicest hotel you could find in New York City, sleep in the bed all by myself and roll around in the bed, then get out of bed, then take a shower, and then get back in bed and then take another shower." And so, there's so many answers that because these, like we said, these injuries take so much from us physically.
Sure. I mean, even when I went back to the bar, I was training fighters up at the New York Athletic Club, and a lot of the newer kids never knew me. Like, I used to go in the ring with all these guys
Yeah.
back, way, way, before I got injured, and I used to work with them. I used to spar with them, and it kept
Yeah.
me in shape, you know what I
Of
mean? And
course.
helped
Of
me,
course.
teach them a little bit. But there were so many other fighters that came afterwards that never saw me. So on that list, if there was a list, I would love to just get back up into the ring and just dance around the ring for, 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds or whatever.
Yeah.
Cause I part of my life, but my grandkids, because, they don't know me
Yeah.
outside of, like, I have pictures of me boxing and all that stuff, but they
Sure.
don't know me outside of, the chair. So
Absolutely.
for them, I would like them to see and,
Yep.
whatever, but,
I
um,
completely understand.
they can envision that, they can,
They sure
you know?
can. And with that, Terry McGhee, I'd like to thank you not only again for your service to the country and to folks like me who didn't have to do all those things that you did and see all those things that you did, and ultimately again for joining me here on the Quadcast. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and sharing your story.
Thank you very much, John, and I wish you all the best and all of your listeners, and, you know, uh, God bless you. Thank you
Yes.
for all you do.
And with
Thank you.
that, we will bring to an end another edition of the Quadcast. I hope that you'll continue to join us here. And I will end my show as I do all my shows and say that I am John McAlevey, and I thank you for your time.